Hi everyone, today it's a very special project, something I've been dreaming of doing for a very long time already. So I made a bunch of homemade tissue papers, which you can of course collage in your art journals. If you are interested, stay tuned. Thank you for stopping by. It's Asia Marquet here, Lemon Creation. And this video, apart from being special to me at least, it's a little weird one. It's divided into segments and I am not really making any project at the end. I'm just showing you how the tissues are working, how to make them, and how can you adhere them to the page later on, because everything depends on the ink, on the printer you have, and so on. So there is a few hints and tips I discovered during this travel of mine. And I'm starting by doing just a mark making on the normal printing paper. It's a 80-gram printing paper. I was just bored when I was watching something. And so when I'm watching something, I'm usually doing mark makings. And I started like that. I couldn't stop. I actually saw that it's relaxing me on top of everything else. So I was continuing. So these circular mark makings I've done with Uni Pin fine liner, which is similar to microfine liner, which means it's permanent. So basically you can do it straight on the tissue, but it may tear the tissue because the nib is so pointy. For this one, this page, I used ARRTX acrylic marker. This one is with the brush nib, so it's super cool for this fancy like brush looking mark makings, which is super cool. It gives you the completely different effects and I really like it. And also it's permanent, so if you use it straight on the tissue it should hold quite well. So I've done different types of marking, as you can see, and everything depends also or of course of what kind of markers or fine liners you use, or you can also use paint, and what kind of how do you even hold the pen, it's important, or how do you hold the brush. But that's super cool, when you have a little bit of time you can just experiment. I mean, there are so many cool marks you can make. Look at that. It's giving me this kind of broken mark at the end. Everything depends really how you work with your hand. And even if something doesn't look super great at the beginning, you think, oh, it's kind of boring, nothing is nice about it. At the end, when you fill up the whole page, you may completely change your mind. And this one, I think, for this one, I'm going to be using two different things. Oh, actually 3, because I'm gonna be using some kind of bamboo fountain pen, as you can see here, which I bought years ago and I actually didn't use, but I found the idea of bamboo pen like that very nice. And it reminds me of my childhood, when you actually had to nib, or no, had to dip the fountain pen inside the actual ink. Yes, I'm that old. And I think it's a kind of like a neurographic art, these lines, which I've seen on internet. But I also did that with this pen. But the thing I changed is the paper, because I tried on the normal printing paper, it doesn't work. It was just soaking through, and so for that I used the media paper. But I also seen that in some mark makings, when I was looking at the photos on the internet, I've seen that people were doing splatter. So I decided to actually splatter a little bit of water on it and just look what's happened, if I'm gonna get the good effects. And my sprayer is not great, I have to say, and I kind of got these big blobs of ink, which reacted with water, because it's a fountain ink, so it's water soluble normally, as far as I know, at least this one I'm using. But I wanted to experiment, and this is my next page. I like this one very much. It took me quite a long time, but as I mentioned, it's quite a nice thing to do if you are watching something or listening to somebody in the background or wherever, and you just keep on going, and it's super cool and relaxing to do. Then, of course, you can do some splatter, which I've realized with this pen is quite a nice, you get quite a nice big splatter, and the small splatter, for the small splatter, I use just a brush. And then I decided to experiment a little bit more and add water first, and then just add the ink. And look at that, guys. I mean, I'm gonna do once, at least, in the nearest future, I think, a page like that, when I spray the water first and then add some ink, because it's just, the ink is dancing so nicely on the water. I really love it, and I actually prefer this effect, so adding the water first and then ink, then adding ink and then spraying it with water. So, I mean, you know, it's, I don't know, I like experimenting, I like trying new things, and it's so liberating also, you know. Some of the things didn't work, you're gonna see at the end, but in general I was quite happy with what I achieved. And also some tiny bit of splatter already on the, you know, wet surface. As always, for the ink, for the Fontaine ink, I am using the, you know, the mixed media paper. So I am sure, because otherwise, you know, you would get just a total mess. I tried with the normal paper, printing paper, and it didn't work. So as you can see, the lines here are my friend, it seems. I really love this idea of, you know, getting the beautiful, beautiful lines just after adding the water on the surface. Now I'm gonna be doing some stamping on the tissue paper. So this is directly tissue paper, which I'm placing on a piece of scrap paper, because otherwise I would just not waste, but make my mat dirty underneath. The tissue paper I'm using is so thin that you know, everything goes kind of through, as bleeding on the mat or on the paper here. I'm gonna be using the stamp set You Bug Me, my stamp set with the bugs I draw, and the VersaFine ink, which is very good for making detailed stamping, even though the first bug didn't stamp very well. And you have to be careful because it's drying quite a long time. You can always use heat gun. But other than that, you can just stamp away. And what I've noticed at the end, when I was gluing the parts of the tissue to the paper, it's actually with this, if you stamp directly with the permanent ink onto the tissue paper and then you add it to your page with even like a liquid kind of glue, you're not gonna get transfer because it's a permanent ink. So it's actually working quite well. It's just time consuming because you have to fill up the tissue paper or the deli paper. I'm not sure how it is called somewhere else, like in States, I think it's called deli paper. I think it's like around 20 grams, this paper. And to me, it's not actually deli paper. I don't know. It has only one side which is waxed. The other side is matte. And as you can see through quite well. And right now what I'm doing, I'm taking my normal printing paper and I'm adding repositionable glue dots on it. I added in 4 corners and I am gluing the tissue paper to it. You will see in a moment I made few mistakes, which at the end I corrected them. But first of all, you cannot have creases like I just done, because you have to be careful when you're printing it later on. Also, you need to add more glue than in 4 corners. So this is already something I put through my printer. So this is already the page which has been done on the paper I prepared beforehand. But once again, you cannot add the repositionable glue dots only in 4 corners. You have to actually add it a little bit everywhere, on the borders only. On the borders, not everywhere, but it's just a little bit more. Because otherwise the paper may get separated in the printer and you will have a printing problem. I am giving you guys straight away a disclaimer. I am not taking responsibility of your printers. My printer is a Canon jet printer, which it's not laser, which is not great also because I know that with laser you will not have any problem with the ink later on. But it's kind of like, I think it's 2 or 3 years old printer. It's not super good. It's like rather on the cheap side if it comes to Canon printers. And yes, twice today when I was printing that, I had a jammed paper. So I'm not taking responsibilities, guys, for your printing printers. Be careful with that. You have to really be careful. And yes, it looks quite annoying almost when I'm doing that. You can see the paper is a little broken on the sides, that I have some transfer of the ink. Once again, it's not a laser printer. So for those of you who have laser printer, you will get better results, I'm sure of that. But I'm gonna show you what I learned. First of all, I started, I reuse all the time the same paper with the same glue dots which were applied. So I didn't reapply the glue dots. I kept through like 20 maybe printing pages, I kept the same glue dots. At the end, they were hardly attaching the tissue paper, but because the tissue paper is so supple, so soft, they were still attaching. So the more you do that, the better results you have actually, as long as you don't make creases, as long as you align both papers properly and you don't let the glue stick out, so the glue doesn't stay later in the printer because you didn't align the pages properly, or you put glue too close to the edges. And then when you do that and use the craft knife to separate the pages, it just works perfectly. And one more thing I did, that's why I had the seepage of ink. I actually, at the very beginning, I didn't realize that this tissue paper has has 2 sides different. So one is waxy side and the other is matte side. So everything depends on which side you are printing, and you should be printing, of course, on the matte side. So I'm gluing the sticky, not sticky, rather the smooth waxy part. I'm sticking it to the paper, and I'm printing on the page on the side which is matte. And look at that, guys. With time, I have no problems at all. They are coming out easily from the paper, and they are printing nicely. And here is few of the pages I've made, and I'm showing you now how I made them. This one I didn't even finish, I just finished it in Photoshop. So, you know, in Photoshop I like to just change them, you know. Sometimes they are a little lopsided, so I can maybe fix them, or if I find something is too big or too small. This one I didn't finish also, I don't know. There are some pages I didn't finish. So everything depends how do you want to work. There were some pages I didn't tell you, but I actually did, or I didn't show you rather. I actually did them with the black acrylic and the brush. This one I did with the writing one. It's my writing. I did it with the fountain pen. These ones you've seen, I did it with the fountain pen. Then I've done with the markers. So basically I've done different, everything was different almost. I've done some on straight away on the tissue paper. For this one I used pen and acrylic paint. Here I use a flat brush and acrylic paint. So everything almost was different. And that's also the mark making, you know, you can just change and just try. This one is an old rice paper I had. I was thinking I'm gonna just, that's how I started. I was thinking I'm gonna just fill up the rice paper with the mark makings just for me, but I just loved it so much that I was continuing doing it. And lately I actually scan all the pages and I work with them a little bit in Photoshop. On some of them, the ones which I needed to work on them in Photoshop. And then, as I mentioned to you, I just print them out. So really be careful with your printer. Maybe not all the printers can do that, but of course you can try. Just be careful that your pages are both well attached. So It's actually always better to waste your tissue paper because it was attached too well to the paper, then actually it wasn't attached well enough and you break your printer. So be careful with that. I told you I had 2 accidents, I think, today like that, but I managed to, deal with it. But just be careful. And here I was showing you I made also directly to stamping on 2 pages from my Censored stamp to have a little bit of script and numbers, but that was done directly on the tissue paper. It's not super good, but that's the tissue paper also that you actually tear it normally in small pieces, so it doesn't really matter if you see that some of the imprints are not well done or they are loop-sided, which is my problem. So I don't mind that much. But here there are the printed one. I tried to make 2 copies of each paper, especially the ones I liked. And you can see on some of them are actually coming out quite nicely, others not. And the reason for that is that, the ones at the very beginning, I think 5 or 6 pages at the very beginning, I really struggled with that before I understood how to take them out from the backing paper, how to put them well in the printer, like how to glue them, basically not put well to the printer, but glue them. And most of the problem gave me, I think, I made 2 prints before I realized that they are actually, the sides of the tissue paper are not the same. I'm gonna try to give you a link to the tissue paper, of course, in the description box below, because I bought it on Amazon. It was not expensive. So, like that you can see. And it's a nice idea also, to just have it at hand, the tissue paper, and incorporate it in your works, and always, have some personal touch in your work, because your mark makings is unique. I think I'm gonna, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna make bundles of some scrap paper and scrap materials and things like that. And some of my original work, which you can see, for example, this one. And I'm gonna put it in my shop because I've seen there is an interest for that. I didn't even know. We'll see, but I think if I do that, these tissue papers are gonna be part of these bundles. And I really I really fancy doing that. So I don't know, I hope I'm gonna do it quite quickly. And I'm showing you here, look at that, guys. That's the first page I think I made. It was completely like the ink was, make smudges, the paper was torn. That's because I didn't put it on the correct side. And so, it takes a practice. It takes a practice, and I was thinking I'm gonna give up today. I printed those 2 or 3 pages and I said that it's not worth it. Then I got this, problem with the printer. And I said, no, it's not worth it. And then I said, okay, I'll try once again. And then it started just working. So it's good that when the glue is not very, very, very strong also. So really, it's just experimenting, a little bit of experimenting. And I think I still had some tiny bit of glue dots here on this paper because I didn't want to separate easily from the other. But I actually absolutely love them. But there is also the thing that they do react with the glue. Because my printer is a jet printer, I think the laser printer would not react with the glue. Before I come back to that, I also did some tissue with the stencils. I have some of them, they were actually made with the stencils, and yes, so you can do that as well using stencil and maybe acrylic, but just be careful, don't maybe do it straight with acrylic on the tissue paper because you will get a seepage. So it's better to do it on the regular paper even, then scan it and just print it out straight from your computer. And so yes, now I'm gonna show you how do they work on the actual paper, on the painted paper, on the blank paper. So you can see you know what you get, basically. And as always with tissue paper, you can either tear them out, the elements you want, with your hands, or you can use the brush with water and just trace around the edges, and like that you can just tear the tissue paper so super easily. So this is also super cool about the tissue paper. It's a little bit similar to the rice paper. By the way, I don't know if you know that I have some rice papers in my shop right now. So I'll be very happy if you check them out. But with tissue paper, I find the tissue paper is actually usually less visible on the page. But everything depends also. Everything depends on what materials you use, what kind of paint, if you add a little bit of gesso to kind of cover the edges or hide the edges, and what kind of glue you are using. I usually use matte glue, gel matte, for gluing the tissue or rice paper. And in case of this bag, I had no problem with the matte gel, because simply that was actually the bag which I directly stamped with the permanent ink onto the tissue paper. So I could work with the glue from underneath the paper, and like you see right now, from above, because very often we also add the glue on the top, so like that we kind of we can protect the tissue paper more, even if we want to add some sprays or things like that. That's giving us an extra layer of protection. So with the tissue paper on which I use the permanent ink and stamp, I had no problems at all with using this matte gel. And here we go. This one is evidently, as you can see, the bad copy, the one of the first copies of the paper I actually put or printed out on my printer. Once again, jet printer. I think this is very important. So here I'm adding the matte gel, and I can see straight away that there is a small reaction which is happening. So the ink from the printer is reacting a little bit with the fact that the matte gel is so liquid. So that's why I'm dabbing it off with the tissue paper. Of course, it's a mark making, and of course it's me. So like, you know, if it's grungy, if it's a little imperfect, I don't mind. And it's not a big deal. I think with laser print, once again, the issue is gonna be non-existent, but I prefer to tell you that there could be an issue. So everything depends on what kind of projects you are making and how clean you want it to look like. But yes, evidently there is an issue, and if you were to buy a tissue paper from a shop, like from art shops, you wouldn't get this problem. But because it's handmade, well, there is a problem. So I wouldn't add the matte gel on the as a top coat to that. And I would be also sure that I already have my paints underneath before I actually glue that. Because if I was to spray now with the sprays, which I am actually gonna do right now, I think, or in a second, they will react a little bit with the ink, which is once again not permanent. So that you have to also bear in mind when you are working, just not to make a mistake of, you know, wasting your page because you forgot. That can happen, you know. I'm forgetting constantly about things because there is so many things, so many products. Sometimes, you know, I'm getting a little bit lost. You can see here that there is a small reaction. It's not a big one, but there is a tiny, tiny, tiny one. So I dabbed it off with the tissue very quickly, not to have any more of the reaction. And the effect is quite okay, especially with these circles, which already were sprayed in water when I was making them. But now I wanted to show you what's gonna happen if I already have paint. And this is Lindy's magical, not magical, spray, Flat Fabio. And so it's water reactive. And I decided to try with two types of glue. So I'm having a normal ordinary school stick, like it's a big, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And when you actually glue the paper with glue stick, you have no problem at all. No seepage. It's a, you know, it's a thick glue and it's adhering very nicely. Why wouldn't? And then you have no seepage at all. And on the other part, I'm adding a little bit of mud gel. I'm trying not to add mud gel on the paint, although I did a little bit here. But if you have a different paints and a pattern, it's better not to do it, because it will, if the paints are water reactive, it will react with the paint. So, you know, be careful with that. I'm sorry, my screen cannot focus here. But here at the very end there was a small issue, otherwise no issue at all. So I would advise you maybe to just use a school stick and that's it, like a glue stick, and it would work perfectly. I hope you like this video. I hope you get something out of it. Please let me know in the comments what do you think. As always, I am so very happy if you leave the comments or if you subscribe to my channel. And if you visit my shop, I'd be really, really, really happy. I wish you all a beautiful day, beautiful weekend, and see you soon. Bye bye.